perfect. Hey guys, Louis Dangoor here from GiveMeSport, and I'm joined by a very special guest. He is a former NXT Tag Team Champion, but most importantly, two-time and current NXT Champion, Tommaso Ciampa. Tommaso, how are you doing?
It sounds so good, Louis, doesn't it?
It does.
It's about damn time.
It is. How did it feel? How did it feel to win Goldie back?
Like redemption. It did. It felt like just a story that had to have some sort of conclusion for me to move forward and keep going with my career. I'm happy it finally happened. It was just a long journey to get there.
And I guess it's come at an interesting time for NXT where the NXT that realistically, when I think of NXT, I think of you, I think of Adam Cole, I think of Johnny Gargano. You guys are like the Mr. NXTs. And we're going into a new era of NXT at the moment. Your title win came on the first episode of that. Speak to us a little bit about why this move for NXT and this evolution of NXT is so exciting and what it means for you personally.
It's kind of one of those like what's old is new again type of feels for me. The NXT I fell in love with that I watched prior to even getting here is very, very similar to NXT 2.0, at least in my opinion. Like when I watched it on Hulu in the early days of it being on the network, it was a couple of names I was very familiar with from their independent work, with a bunch of scattered men and women who were just out there to prove themselves and show the world what they had. I mean, even if you think back to like the Four Horsemen, that's kind of how they came onto the scene, was through NXT. It's the first time we really saw them as major players. So it's just cool right now to kind of, it's almost like we put the refresh button on everything and a fresh coat of paint on everything, but it's going to be awesome 5 years from now, 10 years from now to see who of this class and this crop are main eventing WrestleMania and are headlining Raw and SmackDown and so forth.
So other than Braun Breaker, because we will get on to talking about him, believe me, and I'm sure he would have been on your list. But who are some people in 5 and 10 years on the new version of NXT, NXT 2.0, that you think do have the potential to go to the main event of WrestleMania, to be on Raw, to be on SmackDown?
It's always so hard to say. I feel like it's so hard to predict people's trajectory. You got to look at Carmelo Hayes, and he obviously has some sort of it factor to him, a good charisma to him. I think Odyssey Jones, from the first time I ever met him at the Performance Center, has always stood out to me. He's a workhorse, legit, big, strong, athletic dude who just has a really good personality. And he's a good dude too. And he's one of those guys I think everyone was happy to see succeed. The Creed brothers have something interesting to them. There's so many right now who are just kind of like, it's so early in them perfecting their craft that it's going to be interesting to watch the development process.
And someone, I mentioned him earlier, who seems to be on everyone's lips at the moment, is Braun Breaker. I've saw people this week on Twitter, which is just a fantastic place to be, saying he should be the man to dethrone Roman Reigns. People are going that far, saying he's not only the future of NXT, he's the future of WWE and wrestling as a whole. I mean, he looks incredible. He can cut a hell of a promo. What are your thoughts on Braun Breaker, his time in NXT thus far, and what the future could look like for him?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough shoes to fill all around, from family all the way to just the predictions and the expectations and stuff. Hopefully he's able to just keep his head straight on. You know, that's the hardest part. I think he's 23, 24 years old, fairly new to the wrestling business, as far as him actually being in a ring. So I don't know, man. Like the sky's the limit for him. It'll be interesting to see how he handles the pressure. I think that's going to be one of the key components to it. Is I saw the Roman Reigns thing about WrestleMania and all that, and I mean, he hasn't been on TakeOver yet. You know, he hasn't main evented a singles match yet. So I said it last week on NXT, and it's kind of just how I feel. Like you put him in a ring with a guy like myself, who's 16, 17 plus years deep, and it's not just like sink or swim at that point. Like I think the quote I use is, he was going to drown in an ocean of inexperience. And it's not even about being prepared for the moment. And you know, he can't be prepared for the moment. So hopefully he's just able to take all the highs as well as he can take the lows, because he hasn't quite hit that point yet.
And I don't know if you've seen this, again, speaking of Twitter, when you guys first had your little interaction on NXT, there were people comparing it to, do you remember when John Cena and The Undertaker had their backstage interaction? When Cena just debuted? Yeah, the handshake. I know there wasn't one with you guys, but people were like, is this the NXT's version of that? So how does it feel? I don't know. Listen, I'm just reporting what I've seen on Twitter.
If I could be NXT's Undertaker, I'll take it. Yeah, shoot. That's great.
It just seems crazy that, and I mean, from your perspective as well, and I didn't think of it until you just said it, having guys like you involved with NXT who are going to be shaping the next generation of talent is so important. So is that something you're doing both on screen and off screen? Like you look sitting down with someone like Bron Breakker after a segment you guys have and going, hey, look, that was great. You could improve with that. Are you sort of looking at this from a sort of not only a performance stance, but almost maybe like a coach or a mentor?
I don't know. It's hard for me to put any labels on it. I take it as a responsibility. I'll say that much, just because I know what's been entrusted in me. You know, the second I was able to win the NXT title for the second time and do it on the debut episode of 2.0, there's a lot of layers to that. And I take that pretty seriously. And so I understand my role and my position. I never try to, it's kind of one of the jokes of like, hey man, come sit under the learning tree. I don't know. It's not really a thing that I do. I try really hard to just work hard, lead by example. Of course, if somebody asks me for advice or feedback, I'm happy to do that. 9 times out of 10, if not every time, of course, you talk to the talent that you're involved with after a match or a segment or a promo. But that's across the board. That's whether you're a year in or you're 10 or 20 years in, you know, because we're always learning something. Like same for me. If anything, I'd be honest with you, this has been even like a better learning experience for me, because I've been put in new and unique positions over the last few weeks that have really challenged me. And I find that to be kind of refreshing in a sense, because it's different. It's something that I didn't really see myself doing or playing this role, you know, a decade ago. So it's really been a fun time for myself, as well as all the different NXT veterans and the NXT new guys and girls.
And you're doing something different, and you have been for a year or so now, where for the first time that you guys have both been at NXT, you and Johnny are both going your kind of separate ways, doing your own thing. I interviewed him a few months ago, and do not take this the wrong way, but he said he was relishing the opportunity to kind of do his own thing and not sort of it always to be, when you say Johnny Gargano, the next two words to come out of your mouth would be Tommaso Ciampa. Do you share in that? Have you enjoyed to be Tommaso Ciampa and have matches with Kyle O'Reilly and team with Timothy Thatcher? Have you enjoyed to do your own thing and not be so tied to Johnny, as iconic and as great as your sort of interactions in NXT have been?
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, after the neck surgery and the moment we had in New York after he won the title in that insane match with Adam Cole, I think to both of us, we really wanted to just put it to rest there. Like, it obviously wasn't the ending that everybody was hoping for or expecting, but it felt like an ending. It felt like the closure. So even coming back from neck surgery, I think if it was our choice, the two of us would have never crossed paths on screen. You know, we had the one fun one with Mustache Mountain there, but really just to distance ourselves from one another seemed to be the right play. And, you know, one thing leads to another. Sometimes, you know, you just got to do what you got to do. But yeah, I think we're both happy to just kind of be out on our own right now. And it's just having fresh opponents and fresh storylines and just being able to show different layers to your personality or your character or your in-ring stuff. And yeah, you know, one of my favorite opponents I've ever had, one of my favorite teammates I've ever had, but yeah, it's good to create some space.
I said to him when I spoke to him, it seems like you guys must have pissed someone off, one of the wrestling gods off, because you can't finish a feud. No one wants it to end. People are taking this fight forever chant a little bit too literally, because you just can't end it the way that I think everyone wants it to end. And I'm sure you guys ideally would have liked it to end. Surely, I know you said at New York you would have wanted it to end sort of if it was down to you guys. But is there any part of you that goes, you know what? we want to just have a takeover match in front of a massive takeover crowd and just kill it. Surely that's got to be something you guys are wanting in the future, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. But surely that's got to be something you guys want to properly put a close on.
I think if the stars align, yes, but it's definitely not something I want to force to have happen. It's not selfishly. I don't need that. I don't like, and I don't think Johnny does either. I don't want to speak for him, but on a selfish standpoint, I don't individually need to have this one more match, but if things lined up and if most importantly, if people were clamoring for it and demanding it, and our character arcs kind of cross paths together in the right way, 100%. That's simple, just because he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. So anytime you get in the ring on a huge stage with someone like him, of course you're not going to turn that down. Yeah. But it's hard to see where that would happen. Like at least it's not going to happen in the near future. It feels so. Who knows? It's just, everything's so unpredictable.
And when I spoke to him, he spoke about the infamous 2019 main roster call-ups, where you guys were I was looking at my phone. I think it was 11 p.m. over here in the UK. And I'm like, oh, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are going to Raw. And then teaming together when you guys have sort of been doing this whole different thing in NXT. He spoke to me about how you had to, I think, he was away. You had to go to his apartment and get him a suit to wear. Yeah. Speak to us about your experience of those few days when you found out kind of you guys getting to wrestle. I believe there might have been a slight injury scare with you on the SmackDown in your match with the Bar. Maybe it looked like you tweaked a knee or something. Kind of speak to us about that sort of few days of what I'm sure was utter wrestling craziness.
Yeah, it was. And there's a lot of layers to that. It's one of those things where you just try to adapt and roll with the punches. Obviously not our, picture perfect scenario in the hottest part of our feud to go up and start tagging together. But I don't know. You can only control what you can control, and there was the scare with the Bar it was a visual scare. Luckily, it wasn't an actual scare. Visually, it was terrible. And I just, I kind of dodged a bullet on that one. But the whole thing, it's anytime, I feel like anytime we've done anything with main roster stuff, it has been always a crazy whirlwind. There was the call-up time. There was the SmackDown where all of NXT pretty much had to come in, and it turned into an invasion and Survivor Series weekend. It's almost like it's just, I don't know, like you said, wrestling gods or whatever, but it's nuts every time we go to do stuff, and it never seems to get off to the right foot. It ends up in the right way, but it never gets off to the right foot.
Well, speaking of that, a very handsome wrestling, whatever you want to call him, journalist in myself, did find out last year that Randy Orton had a strong desire to work with you. I'd heard that from quite a few people. Was there ever anything in the works? It was around Survivor Series time SummerSlam time last year. You guys had some sort of back and forth on Twitter, and by all accounts, he seemed quite keen to do some work with you. Have you heard anything about that? Have you had any positive interactions with Randy in that vein? And is that something, I assume you'd be very interested in working with Randy, but speak to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think sometimes most of the time where there's smoke, there's fire. And in that one, I don't know that there was as much fire as people started to create on their own. We're just both, strong-minded guys and speak our minds freely quite often. I don't think it was a lot more than that. If the opportunity comes up and, everybody signs off on it, of course, I would love to do it. I think Randy would love to do it. It's the same thing. That it's timing, and it's all these things that are out of your control. If somehow, we get the draft coming up, we got Survivor Series coming up, and then we're in full swing with the Rumble and Mania and stuff. If in any way, shape, or form it lines up and it happens, it'd be great. It'd be great and on a lot of different levels. But I don't think there was too much more to that than what the internet was kind of leading people to believe.
Cool. Listen, thank you very much for taking the time speaking today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure you appreciate the fact I didn't ask you whether you'd be interested in a main roster call-up, which every single interview I listened to as a form of preparation for this, you spoke about. So listen, Tommaso, thank you very much once again. Before I let you go, though, can you sort of give us the plugs, tell people why they've got to be watching NXT 2.0 on Tuesdays, obviously on the USA Network in the States, and on BT Sport over here in the UK?
Well, yeah, across the board, man, wrestling's on fire right now, and it's a fun time for NXT anytime the draft is around because we have no idea what's going to happen. It's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, it's everything. Check all the boxes on that one. The draft starts tonight, and then it goes into Monday, and I'm sitting here in my house just going, well, I don't know. I'll keep my phone by me. You really, truly don't know, and I mean, shoot, man, I do not know. And then see the after effects of it because, the second the draft comes to a conclusion, we got NXT 2.0 and we're just, right now, we're all excited there, man. The atmosphere and the backstage morale and everything, it's just high. It's a lot of people who are really excited, guys and girls who've been training in empty warehouses and wrestling in front of nobody for the last 2 years now. And now they're out there in front of a live audience and they're on USA and it's every Tuesday and we're watching them sink or swim. And it's freaking exciting. For me, it's exciting. And I'm happy I get to be a part of it.
It's exciting for us too. Guys, a reminder that's NXT 2.0 on Tuesday nights in the US on the USA Network and over here in the UK on BT Sport. Tommaso, once again, thank you very much for taking the time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And I hope the next time we do this, you've still got Goldie wrapped around your waist or hugging her tight within your chest. Thank you very much once again.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.